Motorsport TV Live, brought to you by Motorsport Tickets, the dedicated motorsport experiences provider.
Hello and welcome to Motorsport TV Live. I'm Chris McCarthy with all the latest from the world of motorsport. Qualifying complete, and it's Max Verstappen who will start on pole ahead of Lewis Hamilton for the Abu Dhabi F1 finale. Lewis Hamilton is forced to admit he had no answer to the Red Bull's superior pace, and Zhou shows off his F1 credentials by winning the day's second F2 sprint race. All those stories and more coming up here on Motorsport TV Live. Well, we are a step closer to knowing who will win the Formula One World Championship as Max Verstappen tops qualifying and will start on pole for the Abu Dhabi title decider as his Mercedes rival Lewis Hamilton manages second. Here's a look at how qualifying finished in Yas Marina a short time ago. So as we mentioned, it's Verstappen and Hamilton on the front row. Verstappen, though, will start on the softs. Hamilton will start on the mediums. Lando Norris a surprise third. Then Sergio Perez will start in fourth place, teammate to Verstappen. Carlos Sainz and Valtteri Bottas share the third row. A disappointing result there for the Mercedes number 2. Charles Leclerc will be on row number 4 with Yuki Tsunoda, the third driver to start on the mediums behind the Mercedes. Then Esteban Ocon, under investigation, will start alongside Daniel Ricciardo. Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly share row 6. Then behind that on row number 7 we'll have Lance Stroll and Antonio Giovinazzi on his final race with the team. Sebastian Vettel and Nicholas Latifi will be on row number 8. Nicholas Latifi out-qualifying his teammate for just the second time, George Russell, in his final race as a Williams driver starts 17th. Kimi Raikkonen's last race will be in 18th, and then Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin will round out the grid. So, Red Bull's decision to move to the softs to start the race may not have been their first choice, but it appears to have paid off so far. As qualifying ended, I spoke to Autosport.com editor Haydn Cobb for his initial reaction to the final front row of the season.
It was certainly one on edge that was a bit of all or nothing, but they all got through it okay. A little bit of drama, but sets up the race incredibly well.
Let's talk about that drama then. Of course, it started in Q2 when Max Verstappen got that flat spot down. I think it was at turn 1, wasn't it? That's changed the whole complexity of the race. Just fill us in there.
Yes, so as you say, he got a flat spot going for a second sort of timed lap on the mediums, which meant that he basically had to bail out of it, and the team opted to switch him onto the softs, and he then improved on his time to guarantee a Q3 spot. But that means he'll start the race on the soft tyres compared to Hamilton, who will start on the medium tyres. Now, obviously, Verstappen on pole and the quicker tyre off the line, theoretically, means that he should have an advantage into turn 1, you would think. But of course, when it comes to race strategy, those tyres will be dropping off a lot quicker in the first stint compared to Hamilton, who will, in theory, be able to run much longer. So it certainly doesn't work out in terms of what Red Bull were hoping to. They certainly weren't planning to start the race on the softs. They wanted to start on the mediums like their rivals. So they're having a bit of a think tonight to come up with the best strategy on the tyres that they start with.
And just explain to us, why wouldn't they want to start on the softs? I mean, Christian, he never gives much away. He said it was probably 50-50, which I don't think he was completely telling the truth there. But just tell us why they wouldn't want to start on the softs in this race.
Well, like I say, the advantage obviously would be there for the first corner and the run to the line, but that's ultimately where the advantage would probably start and finish. And also, given the Abu Dhabi circuit layout, turn 1 is a bit of a tricky overtaking place at the best of times. Where they'll be aiming for is the sort of long stretch to turn 6, where traction off the back of turn 5 is going to be absolutely key. And what Verstappen is going to be lacking, particularly on that first stint, is the traction as the laps wear on compared to Hamilton. So he's going to become, if the gap isn't stretched out right at the start, he's going to be, assuming he is in the lead, he's going to be exposed quite badly to Hamilton. And then, of course, it really puts pressure on him having to make the move first in terms of pitting, whereas sort of reacting whereas Mercedes can react accordingly how they see fit, rather than sort of if Hamilton pits, Verstappen could say pit a lap later if they're on the same tyres to negate the strategy or the undercut. So it sort of limits their potential a little bit, but yeah, Christian Horner's right. There's still plenty of options, and track position is all important at Abu Dhabi. I know that the circuit has been changed in terms of layout, but it still looks like it's going to be absolutely vital. And in theory, that's what Verstappen and Red Bull will have from the off. So they've still got some advantages, and I'd still say you'd rather be starting from pole than second, which sounds a bit silly, but yes, it's still advantage Verstappen, but only just.
Well, let's fill in the gaps between Q2 and the grid for the race. Of course, Q3, Verstappen then went out, played a little bit of tactics with Perez, but I don't think ultimately that was what gave him pole position. That lap time he did in that first run, though, over 0.3 quicker than Lewis Hamilton. It was even bigger than that, wasn't it, after the first runs? And even after Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff, they put their hands up and said, we simply had no response to that. Where do you think that lap came from? Because throughout the weekend, it seemed that it was Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes that looked quicker, but they're down in first and sixth now.
That's right. It was a mega lap from Verstappen. The toe, they're equating to about a tenth, maybe two, in terms of lap time gain for Verstappen that he got off Perez, like you say. So there's still a tenth or two, depending which way you angle it, that he's got a gap on Hamilton. And you're right, the fast car did look like Mercedes through practice. So I think you just put it down to an absolutely phenomenal lap by Max Verstappen, and arguably could be the qualifying lap of his career today. Fernando Alonso obviously has a lot of experience in these sorts of things, has already praised his lap and has sort of said it was outstanding and unbelievable, which you've got to say it is. Hamilton would likewise just said it was a fantastic lap, and I think all drivers in it would just said fair play. He's a quick driver, which is a fair point, I think, to make, despite all the drama and the controversy that has come. These are the two quickest drivers in the world going toe to toe, and when it comes down to a single lap, it's a mighty close fight, but on this afternoon's showing, it was Verstappen that had the edge.
And from what you've seen so far this weekend, of course, over one lap, he does have the advantage. There's no doubting that. What about over a long stint? From what we've seen so far this weekend, do you see Red Bull having the advantage in the long stints or Mercedes, or is it too hard to say?
It's very difficult to say. Looking at the Friday pace, you would think Mercedes would have a slight edge. And again, I would go on sort of the tyre. They certainly look like they'd be open to the one-stop strategy, whereas for Red Bull, it's going to be one hell of a push in terms of tyre life conservation to make a one-stopper last, and they may be therefore forced into two. So strategy is going to come into it. Race pace is naturally going to be the ultimate decider, and we could have a race which, funnily enough, hasn't really been talked about in terms of a style of race, in terms of the highlights of the season. I'm thinking a Barcelona or a Paul Ricard, where they go for the strategy divergence, and it's up to the driver that's chasing in the final stint to make up the difference on the fresher tyres and get past their rival. Now, that would be a very intriguing way to end the season. It wouldn't quite probably have the drama, but it would certainly have the tension. But we'll all have to wait and see how it plays out, because it's very easy to make predictions like this, but until it actually happens, it could be complete rubbish.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Just quickly, one thing that was talked about was the amount of drivers on soft tyres around the Mercedes. Of course, 7 in the top 10, all going to start on softs. The other, apart from the Mercedes, being Yuki Tsunoda, who had an absolutely fantastic qualifying today. Do you see that coming into play? The fact that we're going to have 7 drivers on the softs in that top 10?
It could do. It could be an extra challenge to the front two if the likes of Norris or Perez or Sainz do indeed get the jump on their rivals. But I think strategy can sort of play that to itself. Norris has already talked about being nervous as basically the first one onto the title two, and I don't think anybody wants to become a villain in inadvertently disrupting that fight. But being probably quite blunt, and I think Norris has been quite open about this as well, is being realistic on car pace. The two at the front, if they get away cleanly, will clear off, and Norris, who will probably be looking behind him to defend against the likes of Perez and the other chasing. So they could be a factor at the start. But I think it's looking more like all eyes on the front two and what happens into turn one.
Well, Haydn, I think you know what question's coming next. I'm going to give you a few more seconds to think about it. But tomorrow, Verstappen, Hamilton, give me a name. Give me a name. Who's your money on going into tomorrow?
It's a tough one. I mean, I've seen lots of people, making predictions that are far more smarter than me, and they've said, say, Verstappen once and then Hamilton the other. I'd say, on paper and the way things are currently lined up, Verstappen's got the advantage. But it's all to play for. So if I needed to put a name on, I'd say Verstappen now. But that could all change come about 2 minutes past 1 o'clock into the race.
I think from Haydn's reaction there, you can see even with the grid set, it's still impossible to tell who is going to walk away world champion. Now, of course, Haydn did mention Lando Norris there. He will start an impressive third tomorrow. And the McLaren driver has admitted that he feels a bit nervous about starting right behind title rivals Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Norris has no allegiance to either of the two drivers, so is free to race them as he chooses if he gets away well. He knows it's not a straightforward situation. Given his reaction, he said he would prefer not to get too involved and instead would just want to see what happens between those in front. Up until Q3, it had been quite low-key throughout the Abu Dhabi weekend before once again stepping it up as he edged out the number 2 Red Bull and Mercedes cars. Well, don't go anywhere. We've got lots more news from the world of motorsport, including an admission from Thierry Neuville following his terrifying WRC test crash. That's coming up here on Motorsport TV Live. (2022) is set up to be an exciting year for motorsport and plenty of opportunities for fans to get closer to their favourite series. And it's not just the F1 title to be decided this weekend. Brazilian stock cars is on Motorsport TV for you as well. Qualifying is live from just before 7 p.m. GMT with 2 exciting races from Interlagos. Also live tomorrow afternoon from 4:40 GMT. So that will be after we know who is crowned the Formula One World Champion. Now, F1 bound, Guan Yu Zhou won an eventful second sprint race in Abu Dhabi to take his 4th win of the Formula 2 season. The Chinese driver, who will race with Alfa Romeo next season, would take an early lead after starting 3rd and never look back as he went on to take the win. It was a race filled with safety cars after dramas in the midfield, which included an incident for newly crowned champion Oscar Piastri. The Prema drivers' race came to an early end after an attempted move by Ronnie Sarni, which saw both Piastri and Yuri Vips retire at turn 9. Piastri's teammate, though, Robert Schwartzman, had much better fortunes, finishing in 2nd ahead of Ralph Boschung, who continued his good form with 2 third-place finishes in as many rounds. The Formula 2 season concludes tomorrow with the feature race at 9 a.m. GMT. Now, Zak Brown does not expect McLaren to make a call on a potential entry into either Formula E or the World Endurance Championship until the early months of 2022. It was announced at the start of this year that McLaren had signed an option for a future entry in Formula E for the start of the Gen 3 rule cycle in 2022-23. The British marque has also been evaluating a possible return to the 24-hour of Le Mans by entering the WEC with a program in the new LMDH class. Speaking out in Abu Dhabi, McLaren Racing CEO Brown gave an update on the potential for both programs by saying, "What's been driving our entry timeline is the technical preparation that would need to be done to be prepared. We've done enough work on both series to be comfortable with the timeline moving a bit." He added that a lot would depend on how the team's other race preparations for 2022's IndyCar and Extreme E seasons would progress, which include running a 3rd full-time IndyCar entry from 2023. But given today's events, I think Zak Brown has much more on his mind than next year. Now, Thierry Neuville says the toughest chassis of the World Rally Championship's new Rally 1 car probably saved him in a frightening crash while testing Hyundai's 2022 Challenger. Speaking to motorsport.com, Neuville has explained that while driving in challenging weather conditions, the pair were caught out and headed off the road after hitting the brakes, ending up plunging into a ravine. There was significant damage to the car, but Neuville climbed from the wreckage uninjured, while co-driver Martin Weidegg suffered a shoulder injury and required hospital treatment. Praising the new safety cage more than doing its job, Neuville expects to resume his testing program next week in Germany, with Weidegg still hoping to return for January's Monte Carlo Rally season opener. Well, that's all for now. I'm Chris McCarthy. Join us again here on Motorsport TV Live for all the latest news from the world of motorsport. Bye for now.